sit on the board of Sunnybrook, which is another hospital
Yeah.
in Toronto. For those people who are watching who don't know what we're talking about, Sick Kids is absolutely the premier facility for sick children all over the province, if not the country. And
Yeah.
Sunnybrook, the hospital that I'm on the board of, it has a different mandate, although similarly a devotion to mental health issues and brain science. And it's really easy to be impassioned when you see the challenges that you don't have to deal with. It's easy to be grateful. It's much easier. Let me put it that way. It's much easier for me to be grateful for the great privileges that I've gotten when I look at what because of my participation in that board, and when I look at the other challenges that people have to deal with. I mean, it does bring perspective, to your life, which is really important. And I think it's especially important in the work that you do when you mentor people, because if you don't have empathy or perspective, I can't imagine that you're providing to them really cogent advice about their futures.
Yeah. I would not be here today, Lisa, without my mentors and my sponsors. I would not be in this job. And I
Yep.
rely on them heavily today because I always say you find a mentor and you ask them for their career playbook. How did you get to where you are? What are the things you wish you'd done differently? And you take all the nuggets of information and develop it into your own career playbook. But I
Yep.
wouldn't be here today without them, and I rely on them heavily. And right now I
Actually,
try and help as many women that I can to help them navigate their careers, no matter what career that is, as well as, navigating a family if they choose to do so, because it's hard for women to
yeah.
pursue a career, and also to try and have a family and make sure they don't skip a beat. It's really tough.
Let me ask you this question, because I've been asked this a bunch of times by people, and it resonates whether you're in a legal atmosphere or in a business. How do you pick your mentors? How do you find them? What were the qualities that you looked for when you were looking for a mentor to assist you in your development, or a sponsor, whichever?
Yeah. So it's a great question. So one of the things I always say, because it's very hard to go up to someone and say, can you mentor me? Because it's kind of
Hmm.
you feel like. So what I tell people is this: So I had some people that were inside my work environment at FedEx, both male and female, and I had some externally male and female. So basically, what I would do is I would go up to, let's say I pick a woman who's very successful, and I would just say to her, listen, could you be my mentor for the next 6 to 12 months? All I'm going to ask is 30 minutes of your time. I'll send you the questions in advance. And if we could work on this for 6 to 12 months, would that be okay? And a lot of times people are okay with that because it gives them 30 minutes a month for 6 months or 12 months. You're going to get the questions in advance. And so I would pick some women, that it's important to pick mentors that are like you, that have the same thoughts and beliefs. But also too, I did pick some women as well that were very different than I am. I am a bit of an extrovert. So I would pick some women that were a bit more analytical, a bit more withdrawn, because I wanted to understand how they became successful. So the advice I give is pick people like you, pick people that are opposite to you, no, not just different values, but just different personality and style. And then also it's important to have women and men that mentor you. And also I tell people, if someone says, I'm just too busy, then say, okay, I understand, but could I just have 30 minutes with you for one coffee meeting? And I'm just going to ask you 4 or 5 questions on how did you get to where you are? What do you wish you had done differently? What advice would you give your younger self coming up the ranks like me? And the amount of information you get from those sessions, Lisa, are so valuable. I would take notes and I would make sure I would apply the things that resonated to me. And my mentors helped me get where I am today. And I'm so grateful for them. And that's why I'm so grateful to give back in any way I can to help people navigate through this.
Um, the discussion about seeking out people who had different qualities from you reminded me of a question I meant to ask you, which is, as you progress through your career, I'm assuming that you, like me, needed to develop different skills, right? Like you were taught a certain range of talents when you graduated from university or whatever, and then you were in a job and you had to learn a new set of skills and then a new set and a new skill. So, what I'm interested in is your perspective on the different skill sets that you've had to learn and the ones that as you've become more senior, as you became more senior in your job, you thought were amongst the more important of those skills?
Yes, great question, Lisa. So the first thing I would say that I really had to learn the importance of is what I'm calling situational leadership. And that's something I really had to learn. And let me explain that, okay? So for example, as I mentioned, I'm an extrovert. So I'm a people person. So I had to learn to understand situational leadership. So for example, when I became a manager, I'd have 5 people on my team. I had some introverts and I had some extroverts. So in my introverts, they were very private. So if they came in on a Monday morning and I said to them, "Hi, how was your weekend? You know, what did you do?" They'd be like, "My weekend was fine, thank you. Anywho, let's talk about business." So I had to learn that my introverts didn't really want to talk privately. Didn't want to talk about personal. So I had to go with their flow. Whereas my extroverts, if they came into my office and I got right to business, they'd be like, "Oh, aren't you going to ask me about my weekend?" So I had to learn that each one of us is made up differently. So it's so important when you're dealing, and also, which I'm sure you find this too in the legal practice, is that you need to understand your clients. How do you click with them? So to me, I understand what is the type of person I'm dealing with. Are they an introvert? Are they an extrovert? Are they right down to business? Or they want to get to know you as a person before they figure out whether they like you or not. So that's one of the things I really had to learn, and I do this today. Even when, like I said, I joined the board at Sick Kids, I had to quickly start to assess the different types of people and their dynamics so I know how I could connect with them. I said the second thing I learned is how important it is on the communication skills. Hugely important. So, for example, I had to learn, and there's certain things that you should not type an email that are so important that you need to pick up the phone. So knowing when to communicate what method,
Yep, yep.
depending on what news you have to
Oh,
give.
100%
So
agree with you.
interpersonal communication skills are huge. And a lot of people just go to email on everything, and a lot can get lost in the translation. So I'm a big believer in, use that phone and have that connection on things that really are important on what you're dealing with at that moment. Some people just resort to email all the time and their emails get misconstrued.
Yep.
The last thing I had to really learn, and this is more of a personal one, Lisa, is that none of us are perfect, okay? There's no such thing as a perfect human being. For me, it's a lack of patience. Because I'm a type A and I'm a driver, I move very, very fast. And I have to realize that not everyone moves as fast as I do, and I would lose people along the way. So for me, I am constantly being aware of the fact that I have to make sure I'm not pushing my team too fast. So to me, I spend a lot of time in self-awareness. Every week I look back and say, did I listen twice as much as I spoke last week? Because we've got 2 ears and a mouth for a reason.
Yep.
Was I like, and so self-awareness and self-reflection is huge, not only as a businesswoman, but I do that as a mom to make sure, like, hey, check in, like, was I a bit too short with the kids? Was I pushing them too hard?
Yeah.
So for me, everyone's got their couple things that they need to be aware of. And for me, I've got to always be mindful of my patience and to slow down.
Yeah, I find the other thing that is a learned skill for me was to learn how to forgive myself for the mistakes that I make. And
Oh, absolutely.
I'm talking about the daily mistakes that I
Yeah.
make because there's always someone that I've paid absolutely no attention to in any given day that I probably should have checked in with, or there's always something that I'm not entirely happy with. But I find that the key to longevity in my career has been to forgive myself for some of the weaknesses or the mistakes that I've made, because as you say, and you're the one who reminded me of it, none of us are perfect.
No.
And a lot of us who get to a position of seniority are unforgiving with respect to ourselves and sometimes with respect to the people with whom we work.
That's such an excellent call out, Lisa, because I tell people there's no such thing as perfection, and we have to stop beating ourselves up and trying to be the perfect wife, the perfect mother, the perfect worker. Everyone makes mistakes, and everyone has bad days. I still have bad days, but I tell myself, Jay, I give myself permission. I'm having a bad day. I forgive myself when I've screwed up, because we all do. We all make mistakes, and so what I say is, if a mistake's been made, I always say, can I control or influence the outcome? If the answer is yes, I dive in. If the answer is no, I let it go, and I have to focus on things that I can control. But it's so important to cut ourselves some slack and to forgive ourselves. And most importantly, what I always try and do, I always say this: never carry a bad day forward.
That's good advice.
Let
That's
it go.
great advice. That's
Never
great
carry
advice.
a bad day forward unless there's something you can fix about it. But if you've done everything you can, each day is a new day. Park it, new
Lisa,
perspectives, move on.
I'm a woman. How am I supposed to not hold a grudge? It's my long-term memory of things that people have done is my tour de force.
I know, but you know what? It impacts you more than them, right?
I think that's probably true. I think that's probably true. Before I leave this topic, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the impact of the pandemic on women, and in particular, what you see as the predictions of how the pandemic's going to affect women. And I know that both you and I are involved with a relatively new initiative that's called the Prosperity Project. We get sort of daily information about the impact of the pandemic on women, and it can be a little demoralizing. So I thought maybe we would have sort of a brief conversation about that.
Absolutely. Well, everyone you can read it, you read it in papers, you can read it online. What unfortunately, one of the outcomes of this pandemic is that research is proving, and statistics are proving, that it's impacting women more than men. And just some anecdotal examples. I mentor so many women, as I've mentioned, but I've got women, that are, very high up, let's say in Deloitte Consulting, and they've got little kids. They've got, a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 5-year-old, and they're trying to work from home. Their partner's working from home. They have one home office, and it's chaos. And they're calling me saying, I have to take a leave of absence because I can't keep up with the work and rightfully collect this paycheck. So what we're hearing is that more and more women are either quitting their jobs, taking a leave of absence because they can't carry on with their jobs, as well as managing the kids either online and dealing with that. So the Prosperity Project, as you know, there's 65 of us visionary women, and it was started by Pamela Jeffries, who's just such a dear friend. I think the world of her. We just got off the ground. Yeah, I mean, she's just an amazing person.
Dynamo.
Yeah, she sure is. And so really what we're trying to figure out is that when we get through this pandemic, which we will get through this. This too shall pass. It's taken longer than any of us thought, but we will get through this.
God's ears. Yeah.
We will get through this. But what's important is that we don't lose the progress that we've made in Canada towards increasing the number of women in C-suites, on boards, etc. And so, we're just getting off the ground now, but really trying to make sure that we can do whatever we can to support women and to help them get through this so we don't lose the ground that we have made over the past many years.
Yeah. I'm going to pivot a little bit because of the audience, and just I'm mindful of time as well. So an enormous part of your audience is going to be made up of women lawyers in particular, lawyers generally. And I think that as the president of a major corporation, we'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on your relationship with lawyers. If you can provide any advice to them so that they would be able to better connect with their clients and learn from you. I would appreciate any advice. I know maybe you don't deal every single day with lawyers, but I'd be
Oh,
interested.
I do. I do.
Oh,
I
okay, so
can
there you
share
go.
some great stuff on this. So first
So,
of all, we have a team of lawyers here at FedEx, and our head of legal is a great individual named Sean McNamee, and he is my go-to. I
that's
literally call him on everything. Okay, I respect all my vice presidents, but even though Sean is our head of legal, I don't just go to him for legal advice. So one of the things that I admire about him and how he's trained his director and his lawyers is that they are our business partners. And I tell everyone in this building, always make sure you bring your legal team in at the very front of an idea because they are business partners. So I always, and what he has trained them is that yes, we are lawyers, but they can, really good lawyers add so much value to the business or their clients beyond just giving legal advice. So that's what he does very well. That's what his organization here does very well. So I will call him on things that really have no legal implication whatsoever because he's got sound judgment and sound advice. So, our legal team here and the culture he's created there has been, they are solid business partners, because a lot of people will feel like fear the lawyers saying, well, I'm going to tell you all the reasons why you can't do this.
yeah.
And he's not that way. And one of the things
Ah,
what I know, he's
you're
always
lucky.
about,
You're very lucky because we're very risk adverse. So
well, here's what he does as well, and this is a good advice for lawyers too, is that what he'll do to his team is that, certain lawyers will apply the same degree of risk to everything, and that's not the case. So what he does a good job of, he will say, okay, on this project A, on a scale of riskiness, this is a 10 out of 10, but on this one, it's a 3. So although I might not be 100% okay with it, it's a 3 on risk. So he gives me that range and tells me, so not everything is, because not everything is as high risk. So
yep.
he helps give that degree, and which helps us to make good business decisions. So when I know something's a 10 out of 10, I let it go. But if he gives me a 3 or 4 risk, I'm like, okay, how can we play around with this to make it work so we can take some risk? Because we all know in business, you got to take some risk to get ahead. So my relationship with him and the relationship they have with all of the senior executives here is truly amazing. So that's the advice I would give to the audience today, is try and find a way to add value to your clients beyond just the legal, other ask, hey, I know this is not legal, but have you thought about this or thought about that? And really get them to think about things beyond just the straight legal context, because it might stimulate an idea that they didn't think of.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that your in-house legal department become, and I'm going to use an expression that someone else used, a trusted business advisor to every component of the business, and in particular you.
1000%.
Yeah. And I was just wondering, does he ever talk to you about the qualities that he values in outhouse legal counsel? Has that ever come up?
Because we do use outhouse legal counsel as well. We bring them in when we're dealing with, let's say, a specific issue where we really need some subject matter expertise on that. But when he goes to select his outside legal partners, he looks for the same thing. He looks for them to come in with, okay, here's the risk, but here's how we could mitigate that. As I said, it's not about, here are all the reasons why this won't work. It's like, help me make this work, and what do I need to be mindful of? So he looks for external lawyers that have some degree of optimism in the sense of, okay, this is the risk, here's how we could mitigate it, and bring some of the values that he believes in. And also, too, I will say this, and this applies to whether you're a lawyer or not, everyone likes working with kind, nice people. And I'm always telling all my teammates, my vice presidents, all the managers is, listen, be kind and nice. We're all in the same team. You don't have to be that bull in the china shop person, because people don't want to work for them. So the kind and nice thing, although it's a relatively simple concept, so many people feel that in order to get ahead, they've got to be the bull in the china shop, and that just turns people off. So I always put that in there as well. So he brings in external lawyers that can get along with his team, because his team is a fabulous group of lawyers that are business partners that we generally love being with them, because they help us in so many different ways beyond just the pure legal advice, and they're
Yeah.
fun to be around.
Yeah. Somebody else mentioned it's a great quality if they could learn to speak English instead of lawyer. And also that in-house really values sort of precision and conciseness. That was something else that somebody said, that they can't handle and maybe it's what you said, is that ability to determine when something's a 10 on the risk meter or a 3 on the risk meter without getting into a whole long dissertation on how you evaluated the risk.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah,
That's correct.
Yeah, that's what I got that message, and it sounded like it was good advice.
And that concludes part 2. Please continue on to part 3, our final video in the series.